process to go inside the chicken house is not an easy one, because human beings, diseases brought to chickens are almost always brought by human beings. It's very unlikely that a disease is going to come from heaven and enter the chicken house. The biggest percentage is brought by human beings, by contact, some form of contact. So we need to minimize the number of times that a person enters the chicken house, whether it's to give them feed, whether it's to give them water. That's why I've told you that we've even come up with an innovative chicken house where no one needs to enter the chicken house to give them feed. So for all the workers who work in the chicken houses, number one, before they enter the chicken house, they need to have a bath. They need to take a bath with soap and water. And after taking your bath, you change into your overalls with your gumboots, and then you step in a foot bath, and then you get in. And then when you get in, if you get out, for you to get in, you have to go through the same process. Yeah? So if you get out of the chicken house 10 times a day, you're going to bathe 10 times a day. Now, I always tell people that, and a lot of people feel like it's too much. But if you consider how much money you're putting into the farm, it's nothing. No one has ever died from overbathing. Bathing doesn't kill. Yeah? So you can bathe 10 times a day, go in. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you don't, you compromise with it. For example, these birds are very expensive birds. These are breeder birds. They are imported from, from Europe. Yeah? And compared to a commercial chicken, a commercial layer. A commercial layer, for example, one commercial layer costs about €1. You can put it in terms of euros. One commercial layer costs about €1. For the breeders, you're going to pay about €6, 6 times as much for one chick. Yeah? If you convert that to Ugandan shilling, that's a lot of money. That's almost 30,000 shillings for a single chicken. For a day-old chick, you can imagine. So if you're keeping 10,000 of them, 5,000 of them, how much money is it? So it doesn't make sense for you to compromise with entering the chicken house simply because you want to do something quickly. Yeah? The best thing to do is to follow all the correct steps. The people who work inside here go through the same system. We have baths around the farm. We have water. It's available in plenty. We've dug wells, boreholes. They call them boreholes. We've dug boreholes, over 3 boreholes on the farm. And we have water. Each of the chicken houses has a bathroom area where people have to take their baths. They leave their uniforms over there, they change their uniforms, and they go and work inside there. We try to make sure that even the workers, the places they stay in, they don't interact as much. So the people who, for example, work in the layers section have their accommodation that side. The people who work in the broiler section have their accommodation towards that side to try to minimize the interaction, because all the interactions within workers lead to an increased risk of spread of disease. We try to make sure that the farmers don't go off the farm. So here, all the accommodation, the farmers stay on the farm. Because every time someone goes off the farm, when they come back, that's a risk for a disease, because you don't know where they have been. Yeah? So you try to make sure that they stay on the farm, and then, your days of leave accumulate, you take your days of leave. You go home, spend your time at home, and then when you come back, you're again going to spend time on the farm, and that minimizes the risk of bringing disease onto the farm. So the farm is a breeder farm, mainly a breeder farm. But before, in the past, we've had commercial layers. We had 20,000 commercial layers that we kept on the farm simply to test them out. It was for experimental purposes, because when we hatched the very first chicks that we hatched as a farm, we didn't want to give them to the farmers, and then they come back and tell us, your birds do this, they are not good at laying, they're not. So we kept them on the farm, we give them the ideal things that we're supposed to give them, and see how they perform. Then the next time we go to a farmer, the farmer won't tell us that your birds are like this, when we know we have the same birds on the farm. If the birds don't perform well, then we know what we are dealing with on the farm. But we kept that batch on the farm, and that we got rid of. So currently we only keep breeder birds, and currently the farm has a capacity for 10,000 layer parent stock for breeders and 40,000 broiler parent stock. So that's 50,000 in total, but we are also expanding. We're also expanding, and the goal is to do 200,000 broiler breeders and 30,000 layer breeders. So having commercial birds on the farm, you see, every time you have different types of birds on the farm, the risk increases, because the way commercial layers behave and what you do around commercial layers is different from what you do around breeders. the way you do the vaccination, the way, you know, people have to continuously to pick the eggs for the layers, selling them, you're continuously going out and coming in, going out and coming in. All that brings risk to the farm. So if you're going to be doing a breeder farm, it's better you have a breeder farm in one place. And if you want to do a commercial farm, have a commercial farm in one place. So we only did that flock as a testing flock, but the goal wasn't to do a commercial layers on this farm. So that's why I have a commercial layer farm in another location, which is in Bali. Currently, it has about 4,500 commercial layers, but the capacity is by the end of the year to have just 10,000 commercial layers over there. So for a farmer who is watching and learning today, succeeding in poultry farming is nothing complicated. In poultry farming, they're what they call protocols. Me, I came from a doctor background, and I understand what they are called protocols. And even in everything in life, there are usually protocols. In the military, there are protocols. You follow this and follow this one step after the other. When it comes to poultry farming, when you bring the chickens in, you need to, before you bring the chickens in, you need to ensure absolute hygiene. That one it's not a compromise. Absolute hygiene. I always try to make sure all my farms are fenced. If you can look around, there are fences all over this farm, because we want to make sure that the people who work in other sections don't cross over to this section. That increases the risk of disease on the farm. The two biggest things that cause losses on farms are, number one, diseases, and number two, poor nutrition. Where do diseases come from? Diseases are brought in by human beings. You understand? When someone comes from the outside, someone comes, let me come and take a look at your chickens. And then you're like, come and see my chickens. My chickens are nice. So all your relatives, they come, they enter the chicken house. All your neighbors, they come, they enter the chicken house. Everyone enters the chicken house. That is very wrong. For me, people don't come to check on my chickens. I don't allow people. Actually, a lot of people ask to come to this breeder farm. I think I've only had about 2 or 3 visitors come to this farm, and they come because they must come. Yeah. So the only people who are allowed to come to my farms are people who must come. So you're a vet, or you're someone who has come, for example, for regulations. You know, if it's, I don't know, maybe the ministry and there are particular regulations that they must come to the farm, then I will let them come. But you don't just come to see my farm because I want to visit. Because for me, it's a risk. I've probably put in, I don't know, 500 million, let's say, on the farm. You're coming simply to see. You're going to kill my 500 million. It doesn't make sense. So for me, it's a risk that I never take. Yeah. The other thing, make sure that there's clean water everywhere. People need to make sure they bathe. Bathing, like I said, has never killed anyone. If people are entering the chicken house, give them overalls. You know, you can give them overalls, but some people don't have money to buy overalls. Just have clothes that are dedicated, that these clothes are for working inside the chicken house. When you get out, you leave them somewhere else. You do your own things. When you're coming back, only those clothes must be used to enter the chicken house. The other thing, make sure that the birds are fed with the correct feed. Don't ever compromise with the feed. Never ever compromise with the feed. You see, what happens with chickens is that, for example, commercial layers, they can lay up to 95%. What that means is that for every 100 chickens, you can get 95 eggs. That's 95% every day. Now, a lot of people, what they do is that they will compromise, and you will say, I don't have enough money. Let me give them less feed. When you give them less feed, if you're giving them less feed, you might save, let's say, 20,000 every day. When you save 20,000 every day on their feed, you're going to decrease their percentage from 95 to 80%. When you decrease that percentage, that 15% difference means that you're losing 50,000 in terms of eggs every day. You understand? So every time you compromise on feed, you're making a bigger loss. So you would rather give the birds what they need. I always tell people, if you give the chickens what they need, they will give you what you need. You give them the correct food, they will give you eggs. If you give them the correct food, they will grow up and become big chickens, and they will give you everything that you need. So just follow the right principles. Hygiene on the farm starts right from the entrance. Yeah? So when someone is coming onto the farm, if they're coming with a vehicle, you need to make sure that that vehicle is sprayed. It goes through a tire dip. If the tire dip is not available, sometimes, you know, people don't have money for tire dips. You can spray the tires of the vehicle to make sure that, you know, the car goes in clean. A car should only come onto the farm if it must come onto the farm. If the car must not come onto the farm, don't bring it in. Yeah, let it park somewhere. Yeah. Then when the vehicles come into the farm, they should park somewhere. They shouldn't be moving all around the farm. The people who access the chicken houses, you need to make sure that these are the correct people. These people need to make sure that they bathe. These people wash their hands before they enter these houses. You need to make sure that you spread disinfectant around these chicken houses. You need to make sure that there is a foot dip with disinfectant every time before you enter a chicken house. You need to make sure that water that's provided to the chickens is clean water. Shouldn't be water that's just flowing in a river. It needs to be water that a human being should also drink, because if that water can cause a human being diseases, that means it can cause chickens diseases. So you need to make sure that the water is clean. You need to make sure that the food itself is clean. You need to make sure that all the equipment that is used while handling the poultry is clean equipment. Yeah. So whether it's the drinkers, you need to make sure that the drinkers are cleaned, either cleaned every day or the automatic drinkers. Yeah. So if they're automatic drinkers, you might probably not need to clean them every day because that won't be entering. But if it's the kind of drinkers that get dirty every day, you need to make sure that they are cleaned each and every day. You need to make sure that the surrounding around the chicken house is clean. Yeah. You don't want to find very huge bushes. You see, you see when we're coming on the farm, since the farm is huge, we have bushes in some areas. But when you come closer to the chicken houses, you try to minimize the bushes. Yeah. Because all those bushes are what are going to cause diseases. You see this space between the chicken house and the house. There's no grass over here. And the reason we've left this space over here is so that, you know, we don't have grass reaching the chicken house. We have a space that we are very sure it is actually clean and it's not going to bring us any issues on the chicken house. So those are the issues that need to be considered in terms of hygiene. So with the farm, you need multiple layers of security. One layer of security won't work. The best or the quickest one and the easiest one is to put fences. That's the quickest deterrent. It not only will protect you from other people coming inside, it will also protect you from, you know, wild animals, from other people's chickens, you know, local chickens, all those kinds of chickens that can bring in diseases. So fences. Number two, gates. I always talk about gates a lot because gates need to be kept closed on farms. A lot of people enter gates and they leave them open. What's the purpose of the gate now if you leave it open? I always tell people who work on the farm, close the gates behind you. Close the gates behind you. Number three, security. Real security people on the farm. As you can see on the farm, we have security people on the farm. If you have a very huge investment, it doesn't make sense for you to not put in some extra money. You know, paying security is not so much. For you to put in some extra money to try and safeguard your investment. You understand? You put some extra money, usually security people are paid 150, 200 every month. Put it in to try and safeguard your, you know, 500 million, 200 million, put it in. It will save you a lot. So that's the other layer that we've put. Number four, we've done cameras. The farm has cameras all around it, yeah, that can be monitored. You know, I can just use my phone, it doesn't matter where I am, to try and check. Before in the past, we had an issue of theft where people would steal each other's property, you know. Someone steals someone's phone, someone steals somewhat. And after 2 or 3 encounters, when the people actually noticed that all the people actually, we actually caught them using cameras. And when we catch them with cameras, we take them to police. The police deals with you. After that, the people actually noticed that we are being watched. So they stopped. So the farm is now very safe. You leave your phone here and you'll find it after an entire day. Yet we have a lot of people working on the farm. So that's another thing that has helped. Number four, dogs. Dogs. So we have dogs. We have over 9 dogs on the farm. So, you know, some of them are properly trained, really, really good guard dogs. Because some of the places you won't be able to reach. The farm is a very big farm. So the dogs will move around on the farm and they will work on the security on the farm. But number 5, it's also trying to hire people who can be trusted and explaining protocols on the farm. Yeah? You put protocols in line on the farm. If the eggs are laid, they have to be collected at this time. The eggs only go to this place. So if I find an egg in another place, there's no other explanation. That egg was trying to be stolen. You understand? Yeah? So the eggs only go through this means, through this place, and they are all kept here. I don't expect to find a tray in another place. Yeah? If I do this, then it's obvious what is happening. So you put in place protocols, you know. People have to be present, for example, to sign off with the records. If eggs are moving off the farm, while bringing in, we brought in, inside the store, we brought in, let's say, 200 trays. Are they 200 trays that are going out? Someone else has to verify that. So about 3 levels of verification before anything moves out of the farm, just to make sure that, there are no compromises between, someone being compromised and theft coming in. So there are different levels that are put for security. And of course, people still try to breach all of them. And once in a while, you'll get them, but it's better than not putting them there, because you can lose a lot in terms of theft. The main farm manager is actually a vet. Yeah, the main farm manager who runs the farm, he has a lot of years of experience as a vet, and he has a lot of knowledge in running poultry farms and running farms in general. So the farm manager is a vet and he runs as a vet. I personally can do a lot of vet stuff, but I'm not a vet. The legal requirements are that such a farm of such a scale needs a vet. So we have to fulfill the legal requirements, and so we do have a vet around on the farm. So the advantage with having a farm is that you can put management and multi-tier management. Yeah, that's how farms should be run. For example, we have layers over here, we have broilers somewhere, we might have a brooder somewhere and chickens are inside the brooder. We have a feed mill somewhere, someone is, producing the feed. Each of the units has a leader. Each of the units has a leader, and the responsibility of everyone at the top of that unit, one of their responsibilities is to make sure that there are records being reported every day. So everyone will have a hard copy book, a physical book, where they report, whether it is the layers, the person in charge of the layer breeders. This is how much feed we gave every day. This is how much medicine we gave. If there is medicine being given, this vaccine was given today. This number of eggs was collected every day. Every unit has a book where the person at the top of each of those units has to collect those records, and every day all those records are supplied to the general farm manager. Yeah, and that general farm manager has the purpose, has the job of reconciling the records and posting them on a platform where everyone who is responsible for the farm actually gets them. So a lot of times I'm not on the farm, but I'll tell you each and every day, I know how many eggs were laid. I know what percentage of eggs was laid. Because starting right from the very first person, in every, let's say the layer breeders, we have different pens. Every person in their pen will count the number of eggs that they have collected in their pen. They'll report them to the person in charge of the layer breeders. The person in charge of the layer breeders will report that information to the top manager, and the top manager will share the information with everyone on the management. So everyone on management, each and every day, unless you just decide not to check your email or the platforms where we share this information, all this information is available every day. And that's how it needs to be for all farms. Whether it's cells, even the cells, if you need to get information about cells, it's reported each and every day on all the different farms that I do have. So currently the farm has quite a number of workers. I think there are about 80 or so, over 80 workers. And the thing with having many farm workers is that you need to put in charge a management structure. That's what I've been talking about, where it's not just one person at the top who is leading everyone. Each of these units has a leader who reports to someone else. It makes it so easy to manage a farm, so easy. And because the farm is a business and we have money, because we are running it as a business, we have money coming in, it simply means that we have the money to pay the people. You don't hire people that you can't pay. Yeah? And if you don't have people working on the farm, how are you going to make money? So, because we have money coming in on the farm, we manage to pay the people every month. So this is a breeder farm, and the main goal is to produce day-old chicks. So what you would probably call value addition in this case would be us getting the eggs, our own eggs. We take them to our hatchery, we hatch these chicks, yeah, and we shall package them and deliver them to clients. Yeah, but the other thing that we're going to be doing, because we are right now expanding, you see, when you're starting, you can't start with everything. And that's what I always tell, like I've always said, the growth needs to be incremental. You start small and you go on expanding. The goal for us is to start producing chicken, dressed chicken. You understand? So now that we're going to be producing our day-old chicks, now that we already produce our day-old chicks, soon and very soon, we're going to also build houses where we raise some of these day-old chicks ourselves, and then we slaughter them when they become broilers, like grown-up broilers, slaughter them, package them as chicken. But currently, the main product that we do have are the day-old chicks that are going out of the farm. So we have a lot of farm equipment, yeah. We have machinery that's used for processing the feed, because for us we just buy the raw materials. Of course, everything keeps growing, so we are developing and we are hoping to get even better equipment. But we have a lot of the basic equipment like crushing maize, maize crushers, feed mixers for making the feed. We have tractors, I think about 4 tractors on the farm, because we've been growing a lot of the maize ourselves on the farm. So these tractors are used for plowing, planting the maize. The workers who work on the farm, a lot of the food that they feed on, we grow ourselves. So that is beans, maize, we grow ourselves using tractors. We have a hatchery around as hatchery equipment. So we have a whole warehouse, by the way. We have a whole warehouse. We have a whole workshop, yeah. We actually do have a whole workshop, not a warehouse, where we make everything that we use on this farm. So before, we were using solar, yeah? We were using solar, we were using 3-phase solar to run everything on the farm. But right now, we actually did manage to get umeme on the farm because the burden on the solar was also too much. But we use it to make everything that we have. We weld our equipment here, the feeders that we use for feeding chickens, a lot of things that we do here. You know, for the fencing, whether it's concrete pillars, we just bring in raw materials and we use our workshop to make everything right from the farm. So the farm is quite big. The farm is quite big, and the advantage of having a big farm is that, first of all, your neighbors are very far away, so the risk of bringing disease in is very small. But we have a section of the farm where we've actually planted a forest. Yeah, a teak tree forest. I think it's on about 30 acres in the distance. We've planted a teak tree forest quite in the distance. At the bottom of the farm, we have a bit of a marsh, and we plan on putting a fish pond right at the bottom of the farm. A lot of the rest of the farm is simply used to graze. Yeah, we use it to graze the cattle. We have some few cattle that are left, and the goats and sheep. Before, previously on the farm, we've had over 800 goats and sheep. Currently, we downsize. They're probably about 300, but they're still quite a number. So we use the rest of the farm to graze, and then the section around the chicken houses, we try to slash it and keep it maintained. But generally, the environment is intact. We do have a lot of wild animals around, by the way. We have cobs, antelopes, a lot of them moving around, and we try to make sure that we don't disturb them. We just let them move around and we don't hunt them. I do have a lot of my family involved in different tiers. The thing is that we need to remember that it's a business, and you only give people responsibilities based on their capability. One of the easiest ways to make a business fall is simply, for example, putting your wife at a position which she can't manage, only because she's your wife. Yeah, it's not a good business decision. You help her grow to that point, yeah, through trainings and things like that. And if you think she can manage it, then she can handle it. But if you just give it to her simply because she's your wife, she's going to fail because she doesn't have the ability to manage it. You understand? So that's why a lot of people make mistakes. So since it's a business, of course, there is a proper managerial structure, yeah, and where my family members can fit in, those who are interested and those who I feel are fit for a lot of the jobs, they do. I have family members involved in sales of the company. I have family members involved in other sections of the company, even in management. Yeah, so it's simply where they fit in and where they can learn. Of course, it's a step-by-step thing where they grow upwards, but it's also a big mistake to give them a position that they can't handle. My wife is doing a lot in the accounts section. Farm has been very, very helpful to the community, actually. Very helpful to the community. Number one, through employment. Of course, when you're doing the construction around all the structures that you've seen around, a lot of the construction is done by people from the local area. So we bring local area people in, they come and do the construction. A lot of the employment, the people who work in the chicken houses, are people from around. I've told you we have over 80 employees on the farm. A lot of these people are people who come from Kalagala. Number three, a lot of the times when we do have festivals, and this is something that we just do from goodwill, yeah, because we know that there are a lot of people in the neighborhood who can't afford to celebrate some of these things. So since we have a lot of animals, we have goats, sheep, cattle, almost every big festival that we do have, we actually kill animals and just move around distributing meat. Whether it's Easter, whether it's Eid, we kill, a cow, kill some goats, move around and distribute meat in the community. And these people have actually been very nice to us. You know, once in a while, they'll come and tell you, hey, twalabye gundi wa mwenga ita wanonga be gundi. You see, because they act as security on the area around. So if you're nice to them, they also become really nice towards you. We do make money from the farm. Of course, since we are in an expansion phase, a lot of the money that we make simply just goes back into the farm to expand the farm. I can tell you, the one thing that I can tell you with certainty is that we do make a good amount of money from the farms. I won't tell you how much it is because, again, that's not necessary. That's what I always tell people. How much I make is not necessary. The most important thing you need to learn is how do I make what I make. You understand? Because that's how you'll get to how I make what I make. How much I make won't help you. I'm not going to share it with you. Probably I'll share it with you someday. But the most important thing is for you to know how much I make what I make. What you need to know is that it's profitable. That's why I managed to quit my job as a doctor, and I'm not interested in going back. I have no dreams and goals of going back to practice medicine someday, because farming for me is 1 billion times better than what I would ever earn as a doctor. But what you can know is that you can make a lot of money out of farming. The challenges currently I'm facing are still, the feed prices are still quite a lot. Yeah, a lot of times you never plan for them. For example, last year we had a time. Currently, the price of maize is quite high. It's around 1,800, but now people are used to it. Before that, last year I think we reached 2,200, but at the beginning of last year the price of maize was 700. No one expected it to reach 2,200. It was too high. It really squeezed a lot of us. It squeezed a lot of us, especially with the expansion projects that we had kept, that we had, you know. You don't have too much money that you've availed for this because you're planning on expansion. It really squeezed us a lot, and that's one of the issues. The other issues that usually we've been facing is employee turnover, because we have a huge number of employees. You know, the thing with a lot of our workers in Uganda is that when the person earns something, they feel like they have reached somewhere, and then they want to go. They'll come, work 4 months, he has gotten his money, he's like, now I'm not where I used to be. He goes away. You need to employ someone else in their position. That means training, because you don't just get someone from the street and tell them to come. Yeah? You need to take them through training for them to learn what to do. So the employee turnover is also a big issue a lot of times, because the employees keep going and coming around. We've managed to deal with the issue of theft, luckily, and the market can be very volatile, very, very volatile. 1 month you're selling out everything. After 2 months, you're having a problem selling some of the products. Luckily enough, we haven't reached the point where where for us it's very difficult. We've been blessed enough to be able to sell a lot of these products. But that's another issue that we do face sometimes. The market keeps dipping and going up, dipping and going up. Marketing is, number one, using the internet. These days, everyone is on the internet, yeah? And if you don't do things on the internet, you get left out. So we use the internet, we advertise with, use word of mouth. Very, very important, especially when it comes to farmers. You see, when one farmer likes your buds, everyone else in their circle is going to use your buds, because the farmers use word of mouth a lot. Actually, they don't even use the adverts as much. The most important thing is word of mouth. So use word of mouth, reach out to the farmers, make sure that their problems are solved. If the farmer is having an issue, reach out to them, try to make sure that, you know, you go through the difficulties that they are facing and try to solve their issues. If you do, those farmers will recommend you to other farmers. You know, use social media, use Facebook. Those are the main ways you are doing advertising. I've gained a lot from farming, things that I didn't have before. Like I told you before, I had to pay my rent, you know. Right now, I don't need to pay my rent in that very place. You understand, yeah? Before, during the first lockdown, I was locked down at my workplace, away from my work, but I needed to access the workplace. Luckily enough, trucks were still moving. For me to go to the farm, I had to use a truck. I had to board someone's truck. Yet I was a doctor, but I had to use someone's truck to go to the farm, to board those, you know, lorries. But now I can even leave one car at home and use another one. You understand? Eh? So I've managed to actually start a lot of other businesses, which are not just farming, yeah, buy property, do a lot of other things that I'm 100% certain I would not have done as quickly if I was just a doctor. I would probably still have done some of them, but slower and not as quickly. So I've managed to do a lot of things from farming. And for me, it's just the beginning. It feels like it's just the beginning. The potential is way more that I can do, way more. I feel like we haven't started yet. Yeah, for me, everything I'm saying, I feel like we haven't started yet. Like I always tell people, we always try to improve. Like you saw, some of the structures we have are wooden structures. They're now being made better using brick. Before that, we're going to be going to environmentally controlled structures, you understand, which a lot of other farmers actually do already have. But because of the scale we have, it would have been too much money to put in right at the beginning. Yet the most important thing we want to work for is efficiency if we have the results. So we want to expand to have a lot of this infrastructure, but also expand in terms of size. Yeah. So currently we are mainly serving the Ugandan market. We want to not only serve the African market, but serve even the world market. We want Farm Up to be known as a world brand, not only in Uganda, like Coca-Cola, like Pepsi. You know, if someone in the US will know what Farm Up is, someone in Australia will know what Farm Up is. That is the goal. For us, it feels like we just haven't started. We haven't started. We are still crawling.